Right, this is something that I was thinking about doing as soon as I broke the plastic mounting for the alternator. Now, what I've done is I've whipped the alternator back off. When I say whipped, it took me about half an hour because you can't really squeeze it out unless you take the engine mount off and then move the engine back. It is really tight at the front of that engine compared to the back of it. It's just like somebody pushed the engine way too far forward in a Rover 45. But basically, I think this was already starting to break up before I just nudged it when trying to reach down and put the bottom bolt back in, because you've got to put your hand, basically it's like that in the car, and you're putting your hand down, and I've just nudged it with my hand. That's probably not going to do with just the plug, because it will just vibrate off. Even with gaffer tape, I just feel that so many things are going right with this car that sort of bodgery is just not me, and I don't feel comfortable with it's just such an important item. Now, to change the voltage regulator, it's just this pack up here. I have got a brand new one sitting next to me in this box, Mobile Tron. I think it's like there's a brand name that I can't recall, but just whack it out of the box. Whoa, come on, do it one-handed, Andrew. Got no tripod today, and that's the new regulator that we have. So we have this covering up the big brushes. We're going to see what a 50,000... Now, this alternator has done 50,000 miles. That's pretty low mileage. The bearing is in good shape. I will tell you now, there's no point in doing this unless the bearing is in good shape. If the bearing's making a noise or it feels graunchy, don't bother. Just get a reconditioned alternator, because this is that's more of a specialist job on a bench, whereas this can be done by anybody, and I'm going to show you it. Now, the usual reason for replacing a voltage regulator is the brushes have just worn down so much they can't contact the what you call the commutator of the motor itself, which is basically the spline shaft where it transfers electricity. But basically we have at the back of it, that's the back of it, that's what we face, and we've got some heat shrink pads there. But basically this is the bit that's broken off. It's all nice and new, so hopefully we'll keep it like that, Andrew. We have a couple of fittings. So if I show you there, you've got a screw there, you've got a Phillips screw there, you've got a Phillips screw there. But the first thing we've got to take off is the positive earth terminal. Now this is a 13mm nut. We will take that off now, and we'll take this 15mm nut off as well. I believe that is for that, which might be the negative side of things. I'm not quite sure, but we'll take both these two off and we'll go from here. Right, thought I'd give you this sort of camera angle. As you can see, I'm doing this from my my computer desk where most of my editing takes place. What you will need is 13 and a 15, and for some reason I have now lost the 15. That's a really good start. Let's find where the 15's gone. Right, after a bit of fettling, it's always good to actually find out what size these are. You'll need a 14 deep socket for the negative post. Okay, you'll need a deep 14 for that, and you'll need a 15. You just need a short one for the other post. Now I've managed to get that off. That was a bit tight. You may need to put it in a vise to hold it because it will spin, or just put it between your legs. That may be what I just did off camera. Let's see if this will come off in one shot. And it won't. So what I have to do is put it between my legs and just hum and ah to yourself for a second, because I'm just going to break this off. He says might end up breaking the whole thing. There we go, that's gone. Lovely. It's just eased off a little bit. That is not the correct way of doing it, but you know, I'm trying to teach you how to do things without using certain devices. You don't need every piece of equipment under the sun. And now that should be loose, and it is loose actually. This bolt should be quite loose now. If I hold it like this, you'll get a better angle, and then I won't have to keep on shooting with start-stop edits. I don't like filming that way as such. I much prefer, that doesn't feel as if it's going to come out. There's a stud, so I'll just put the nut down there and I will whack this other one off when I've found out the right socket. Now I will say, to order this, just look at the parts number on the side. They're all Bosch units, the original units, or Rover, or many Rovers. Okay, this is something I've done on the Focus. I've changed the regulator pack on an alternator, which is the original alternator on that Focus, and it's the original starter. And all I've done is I've cleaned them up and changed the brushes. I've cleaned up the casing on this because it was really oily from muck. I mean, I could go a bit further. I have done so with the Focus, but they are a pain to clean with just a wire brush. And truth be told, I'm not so bothered on the Rover as long as it looks okay. Now there is at the bottom a Phillips screw that's loose, but you'll need to take out that Phillips screw. So I'll just wade in with this and see if it will crack off, and it has. It's cracked off really nicely. The bearings are making funny noises, then it's a reconditioned job. If it isn't, then you can do it this way. Now this looks a bit more technical now, but basically this has got nothing to do with what we're interfering with. We just want to take out the regulator. So we've got one screw there, one screw there, and one screw there, which matches up with 1, 2 and 3 on that side. So we're literally just going to take that one, and that one, and then the whole thing should come out, because I believe this is just a cap that actually holds the brush is pushed down onto the commutator, and this is just a cap. This may not come off. I'll find out now actually. That plastic cap won't come off. It started to crack, unfortunately. The plastic's gone a bit funny, so I'll just take out the regulator with a screwdriver, just a normal Phillips, and the screws are not tight at all. So I'll just whack these out quickly. It's going to pay to clean this up as well. What I've had to do is put a bit of WD-40 just to get these screws moving. I warn you that these two screws, it's these two you're looking at, okay? That one and that one, this one where my finger is, they are the tightest screws ever. Do not start rounding them. That screw started rounding, but luckily it has actually freed off with some penetrating fluid. I mean, back in the day it was the go-to product, now it isn't. Right, now all that's off, you can literally just lift. But you could just lift it out actually. There we go. Now that just slides away and the brushes will come out. Oh, right, let's have a look. Okay, so the brushes are this length. I'll show you a bit closer. That's quite uneven. I'm going to have a look at the commutator in a second, but that's fairly uneven. Interestingly, I'm just going to compare it with the new one. They're pretty much level. So you can see this alternator possibly had quite a bit of life in it, but it was uneven, which I'm going to have a look at now. Okay, now you can see the commutator as it is. Now you can see the wear against the commutator. Now I've seen some scoring like this before, but it's not, it's just normal wear. It's not deep or grooved or brown or black. It's quite nice, and I'm just going to clean that up with contact cleaner. What you don't want is like cracks or a massive groove in one and not the other. To have some sort of wear is quite normal. If I just get in with a screwdriver, yeah, I can. No, I can barely get. Yeah, fine. There's not actually a deep ridge on that at all. But basically, this casing, which is just cracked on the little bit here, because I put a screwdriver to it, realizing it might move. Some of the ones on Fords do. Unfortunately, this looks like part of the actual housing itself, so no good. But this is going to benefit from a bit of a clean up around here. So I'm going to put some contact cleaner Put some rags down to protect the table, and yeah, there's no issue with that whatsoever, although that is quite loose. But I think when you've got the bolt tightened up against it, that does not become loose. So yeah, clean it up a little bit, and we can put the new one on. Well, I've just had a look at some data to suggest that the measurements that I've taken on these, they are 2/3 the way through their life. So yeah, it does depend a lot on the mileage of the car, but that certainly would have needed replacing very soon. So I'm just going to give it a all good clean round here. Always good to clean off the commutator, because if this gets really dirty like it does on a lot of alternators, it just provides heat build up that's no good for electrics whatsoever. Just going to pop this over and just clean it up. Just make sure there's none of that plastic hanging around. It doesn't matter that it's broken a little bit at the end, it's just a cover. Most important thing is to clean the commutator at the end. I've actually found a good technique for actually cleaning this out. So what you do is, while spinning this over by hand, you get your other finger, get the tissue in there, push your finger down, and then spin at the other side, and it literally self cleans. I mean, the rubbish that I've actually managed to pick up somewhere off the commutator is quite bad, and now it's all nice and cleaned up. Now we can just yeah, now it's all nice and cleaned up, we can pop the new regulator back on. Now all you do is get your new regulator pack and literally just insert it into the commutator. Make sure that this goes over the stud, and make sure this bit just goes underneath here, and there you go, done. That is now in, that will be inserted, and all we need to do is secure it using the 2 screws. So if I just pick one of those screws and insert it back in, come on, there we go, and we've got the other one. These are the 2 longer ones, by the way. The short screw goes here, okay, it goes in here where this loop is, okay, where it hooks underneath, okay. But the most important one is to get these 2 bolts screwed in. Okay, insert that one and put this one in. Make sure it's pretty tight, and then once you've done that, before you put these back on, you put the top cover back on, which just literally goes straight over, and then you can just fling that bolt back on, put that one back on. I think I've got to thread that on with a socket, and then there is a screw, this one, okay, which is a completely different side to the rest, and it goes at the bottom there, and it literally just screws straight in. There you go, done. Just hold it straight. This is just a cover. It's got the all important parts number that you need on it. It just covers up the regulator rather nicely, and we're just going to tighten these bolts back up. So just tighten them up. This is a 15, just snug. There you go, you'll feel that. This one, just wound it, just wind it in with a long deep socket till it stops, and then swap it over. And just do it till it's snug. Done. There you go, all done. That was hard, wasn't it? You know, this is a job that people literally don't think about doing. They think, oh, the alternator's packed in, got to get a reconditioned one. Why? The only reason you get a reconditioned alternator is if the bearing has gone. If this is graunchy and stiff and a little bit on the funny side, honestly, you don't need to do that with alternators. 9 times out of 10, the regulator's gone, it's not holding voltage, or it's overcharging. So when you put your foot on the gas pedal, if you've got one of those 12 volt USB charging ports that go in your cigarette lighter to charge like your phones, etc. Most of them come with a voltmeter, and they're brilliant for showing the voltage of your car. So if you basically put that in, look at the voltage, you start the car up, it should be anything between 13.9 and, in some cases with a lot of Fords I've known, 15 volts, but it should be somewhere between the two ideally. You put your foot on the gas and the voltage should only really change very slightly, and that means that the regulator is doing its job. It's not undercharging, it's not overcharging. Otherwise, and I found this out on a certain Rover P6, you can boil the battery if your regulator goes. It was a story actually, I'll tell it sometime in detail, but basically on a long trip back from a car show, I'm smelling this eggy smell coming from the back of the car, and obviously that's where the battery lives, but I never thought it was the battery. I was like, why did it smell so bad? It got me home, 40 miles on the show, got home, opened the boot, whoa, the battery was sizzling. Could have exploded. It was absolutely sizzling. Battery acid was spewing out, but it wasn't too bad, but it was just coming out the sides. And AA man knew what it was straight away. The alternator was whacking out like 25, 30 volts. Something stupid towards the battery. It just goes to show how much voltage alternators could produce. I mean, I was traveling at motorway speeds. Oof, yeah, always make sure that you do a test every so often. Just plug it in, plug the USB charger in, and have a look at the voltage. But there'll be no problems with the voltage in my car, and hopefully when I put this back on, I'm not going to damage this plug. This is very good preventative maintenance. I'm sure, you know, this was working absolutely fine, to be honest with you, and there was nothing to suggest that it wouldn't have given in anytime soon. But I now know that this has got at least 50,000 miles in the regulator, unless there's a problem. They can go, the regulators can pack up like any electrical item if they've been poorly manufactured or there's something of a internal issue, but usually it's because the brushes are worn. And this is a very simple job. You can do it on any car, any alternator. There will be parts numbers on here, and this company, Mobiltron, they've got they make specifically for this job. So I hope that this video has been useful and it will save someone some pennies at some point in the future. But this is now going to be whacked back on the 45, and hopefully it will stay there forever, he says. See you guys soon. Take care.